Glory to the Spirit. These three, my friends, are one.
I was talking with Radha one morning yesterday, on Thursday, and she was saying that because many times she saw in my encounter that I would never move away from the place of the truth, that I had died to myself, for everybody here or something like this. And then it came in my mind, no. It's like Jesus, no, he didn't die on the cross. He died at his baptism. Maybe even died at his birth, So that, it wasn't on the cross that he died for you. He's been dying every day for you. Then, in a way, he died to himself as a person. He gave up his personal existence so that he could be in service to God, to save you, I think it's worth mentioning, I feel. Yeah, it was baptized as an adult, because at that time, because the baptism was very powerful for Christ. It was very powerful for him. It wasn't just, although he said, because John the Baptist had said to him, look, it is I who should be baptized by you. You come to baptize. And he said, well, let's just do this for now, because it is written, let's just fulfill the prophecy like this, no? But yet what happened was that after the baptism in the water, he said that God gave a powerful sign, like a dove came and landed on his head, and God said, this is my son in whom I am very pleased, and so on. But this is for the people, people, they've experienced that. It's after the baptism, he was led by the Spirit into the wilderness. So he was compelled to go into the wilderness, to be alone from all his friends, left to go there. Because he had to go through that test, also, where whatever was left of him, he had to go through the temptation, isn't it? That to wring out the last bit of anything that's left, because you cannot be tempted unless you're temptable. So he was tempted. Look, okay. The devil said, "Listen, all these kingdoms belong to me. I can give them to you, only if you bow down and worship me." He's still doing that with many people, and people are exchanging. They say, sell themselves to the devil or something. And he answered with the scriptures. It is written, "Thou shalt serve the Lord thy God only, and him alone thou shalt serve." No. And they tried other things to do with the circumstances at the moment. Like Jesus was obviously alone, hungry, and thirsty, and he says, "You're the Son of Man. Why don't you turn these stones into bread?" Why do you think he did that? He did that. The devil does this, or the devil, part of our being, does this because it wants to see if you would try and demonstrate that you are good, that you are great, Son of God. In which case, only the ego would want to do that. He didn't buy into that trap. He simply answered from the scriptures. It is written, "Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." Then I'm sure the devil was like, "Shuck." Then he took him to another place and said, "Why don't you throw yourself off this? Because you're so lonely, you're desperate now, aren't you? Where a human being might reach a place where they are they're so alone. So, he says, why don't you throw yourself off this hill? Because he's doing that now to people. Don't you jump in front of this train? Why don't you just do this? It's better to do this, put an end to all the misery and all the misery you're causing to people. You see? Because it is written that, the one who serves God will not strike their foot against even a stone. You see? It says, "Thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. Him only you shall serve," like that. So he didn't speak as his own person. He spoke from the scriptures that he knew, that to remind himself. And it says, only after passing that test, the devil then left him for an opportune moment. And then the angels came to serve him and to comfort him and to restore his spirit. And only after this time could his mission begin, because he was sufficiently clean, to then face what was coming.
Guruji, when you were saying that after his baptism he was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, you mean led by the Holy Spirit into the wilderness?
Yes, by the Holy Spirit into the wilderness. Because he had to fulfill this part. The baptism was one thing, So the baptism, I think, was for the people, but the wilderness was for him.
Yes.
You see, was for the world, in fact.
The true baptism.
Yeah, the true baptism. Yeah. It's a very powerful account.
I feel these baptisms are going on all the time.
Yes.
Around you. And then the wilderness is going on for people.
Yes. This is. I mean, this thing is that this play is going over and over again every day. You know, you're being led into the wilderness. First, you're being baptized. You're going into the wilderness. You're going to be tempted. You know, and you have to rise again. You have to rise up again, but not as the whole you. And not even as a new you, you know, but as the timeless one, as the harmony of God. You see? Everybody has things proven in this way. I mean, they all should be called Thomas, basically. Thomas, the Gospel of Thomas. But Jesus also spoke, you know. He said to Thomas, you know, because of all the disciples, when they said after the resurrection, Jesus appeared to some of his disciples as they were walking along the road. He appeared and caught up with them, walking alongside them. But they didn't recognize him because he didn't look like his usual way. But after they walked and talked with this being, they realized, oh my God, it's the Lord. Like this, no? And they were all full of excitement. And when they went back to the house where the others were, they told him, the Lord is alive. We saw as he appeared to us and he walked with us on the road. And Thomas says, well, unless I see him myself and put my hand in those holes in his there, I will not believe it. So then Jesus appeared to Thomas and called him, come, put your fingers in these holes. You know, and then Thomas says, I believe. And he says, you believe because of your senses, but great are those who believe without seeing. You believe because you see, but great is he who believes and yet does not see.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It is very beautiful.
So this is the power of belief. Yeah. Especially when you believe in, because we believe, we are by instinct we believe, but we believe so much rubbish.
But Baba, at home, when I see your picture, you appears there too, alive. You know, I can feel it. It's love.
Yes. It's the power inside you. Your trust, your love, and your faith being this.
Ramana can, wherever I want to see is
Yes.
it's love and this can appear.
Yes.
It's true.
It's just like this. It is just this. It is just this.
And all God's children's gonna sing, gonna sing when they see their mighty King.
They lived with him, and they ate together. They slept. They had a life together. That was what was special about his disciples, because other people followed him. Many people followed him. But from a distance they had their lives, but they gave up their lives to be with him. You know, many of them. One was tax collector, two were fishermen, another one was working in another place, one was living with their family. They left and they came to live with him and to move with him and to learn how to try and absorb his teachings directly. You know, from that. So that's what the disciple is. Disciple is not just a seeker. The disciple is that it's in the lineage of that thinking, of that expression, and for that they have to live. They have to live it. The others maybe had another life or something like this, but their life was totally dedicated to the realization of truth or to fulfill his teachings. And For human beings who have a strong sense of their own humanity, the teachings cannot, because it's more hard to follow that teaching. It's more hard, actually. Love your neighbor as yourself, and do good to others as doing, be forgiving, and all this kind of thing, which is, which is really sometimes contrary to where the human nature wants to go. It needs powerful encouragements. This is why the miracles were so important, because it helped to build faith, and the people said, no, because to just tell them by itself is not enough, because he has to work against the tide of human, impulses. So the miracles and, that's very much a strong part of what has to happen to help the mind to develop faith and trust and to surrender to God, and to break away from arrogance. And so the images of good and evil and God and the devil are more strong in that paradigm of consciousness. And now we are moving in a different way. We are speaking more about coming out of that sleep of personhood altogether. So even all the evolutionary movements within the states of consciousness, to become a better person, to become more, like this, to have that kind of duality. And yet, every now and again, that he had to say things, because when he said, I and my Father are one, it was very difficult to absorb that in that kind of culture, which was seen as blasphemy, because he didn't say I'm equal with God, because God is the all-encompassing power. He doesn't say I'm equal because I'm equal. It's a very factual kind of statement, but it says that I and Father are one, meaning that I'm in harmony with God. I'm in harmony with God. I move in oneness. I'm not apart from God. And it was kind of like very powerful statements. And the more human beings believe in themselves as persons, and they see that by nature a person is a corrupt form of expression, you understand? And that's why, they have to believe in God in that way, because only God is good. The person can never be good. And the more strong there is a sense of personhood, like sometimes even in Islam, to say things like, like some of the Sufis, the Sufi masters, were also of Islam, but they were like more like Advaita or Zen, you see, because they said, like one of them, he said, under these garments there's only God, or something. That was seen as such blasphemy. They killed him. They killed the people who speak like that, because they could not in themselves go beyond their personhood. So they couldn't conceive that a human being who looked like just like them could say something like that. It would have to be blasphemy. They didn't see that was done through an internal work and transcended the whole human game of you and me, good and bad, right and wrong, higher and lower, and so on. That there are beings who are beyond this, that come out of that, whose references are not the usual human references. You see, so they were like in the heart of Islam, but Islam is very uncomfortable sometimes with the Sufis. Many are, because then the Sufis come with such beauty, like Rumi and like Kabir and so on. They come and they speak a language that is so broad and so beautiful, and so shows such an intimacy with God, and brings so much sweetness to human beings, that they crossed over. Like even Rumi, it was Islam. He had many Christian followers, and many Hindu followers, and many Muslim followers, because the language was so much of the heart. It's heart language. It was sort of mind. Religion can be a lot of mind, but he was speaking more heart language. Same thing with Kabir, Saint Kabir, and Guru Nanak, and people like that. It was so much more broad, But Jesus was teaching it primarily sort of like the Israelites, and they had very strong conditioning, very strong tradition, And as you can see from them, when I told you about the Pharisees and the teachers of the law and the Sanhedrin and so on, they were like the spiritual politics of the day. And they were the authorities. And in the same way that Buddha came in a time when there was a very strong priest culture in India, and Drukpa Kunli came with very, very strong, Lama culture of, the high lamas and big trumpets and so on, and gave a very contrasting expression of God with much more power. So it was really quite a paradox, in that he was coming in such an irreverent way, and yet with undeniable spiritual power. So these are sometimes the contrasts and the games that happen in their life. And so the more there is the focus on people, the more there is violence and antagonism and separatism. The more in the higher way of the pure spirit, there's not this conflict, but then there's less people. You understand? Because the majority of humankind is much more invested in the belief in personhood. They believe that they are the body, mind, and the conditioning. So that's the language that has to be taught to them. You see, and what makes some different and able to go beyond that, we cannot put your finger on exactly what it is. You see, like for myself, it started off in this in a very Christian expression, and like the love for Christ, growing up in this kind of thing. But then, just when I look at the steps that my life took, that I was going to a church and something was not sitting right inside the church. There's lots of young people there, and they seemed to just be really in that, but something was really not flowing for me there in that particular setup, because it was anti-other groups, and I couldn't sit with that properly. So then I left somehow, but I kept the inner connection with God. I didn't make the connection with the church, I made the connection with God. And so I knew the difference. I was started to walk and explore with some fear, because I wasn't sure, I just felt like something is calling me to move and to look at other things. And that was eventually to take me to India. I mean, that's very, very outside of my culture, to somehow, finding this Ramakrishna book and then going to India, and then, so meeting Papaji. I see everything, was planned somewhere in some part of the galaxy. Every step was planned that I would come to meet a master like Papaji, for instance. And then through him, Ramana again, and to find a path that was so direct, and yet seemingly opposite to my entrance, not opposite, but but more refined than that, and in such a quick space, such a quick way. So this is just, I cannot say why this happened. You see.
Glory to the Father, glory to the Son, glory to the Spirit. These three, my friends, are